Today, I'll show you how to configure your Docker containers so that you could reach them via their names rather than their IP addresses. So that way, in case your Docker host gets rebooted, you would not need to make any changes to your configuration files or let's say database connection strings, but you can just keep using your Docker name for your connections. So I already have an Ubuntu server here. It's an Ubuntu 18.04. And I also have Docker already installed and up and running. I currently don't have any containers running, so let's go ahead and spin up a couple of containers. I would just run a Docker container in the background, and I would give it the name of Web1. I would just bind this on a port 8001 and forward the traffic to 80 to the container. I would use this Apache PHP image, which is quite popular. Let's wait for the image to be put, and let's spin up another container, and let's call this web2 and bind this on port AD02. So you can see that I already have two containers, web1 and web2. So the next thing that we would like to do is to create a Docker network. You can do that by running docker network create and then the name of your network. I'm just gonna call this my network. Now let's connect our two containers to this new network. You can do that by running docker network connect, the name of your network, and then the name of your container. So in my case, web1. Let's quickly do that for web2. Now, if we run docker network inspect and then the name of your network, you would be able to see some information for your network, things like your subnet, the gateway, and also an interesting thing is that you can see all of the containers that are connected to this network. So in our case, it's Web1 and Web2. So what this allows us to do is to use the Docker names for the communication between the containers rather than their IP addresses. Let's quickly test that. So to do that, I would just grab one of my containers ID. I would attach to the container. I can do that with docker exec ti followed by the container name and then bash, as I just want to attach to a bash console. Let's quickly install curl. I would just run apt update followed by an apt install curl so that I could test the HTTP request from my web2 container to my web1 container. If I run curl followed by the name of my second container, then I should be able to get a response back. Let me quickly just print out the headers. So you can see that by running curl followed by the name of the container, I'm able to get a HTTP response 200 OK. This means that my two containers are able to communicate to each other through their host names. One important thing to keep in mind is that you need to explicitly specify a name of your container, otherwise it would not work even if your containers are connected to the same network. So you can see how I explicitly specified web1 and web2 as the name of my containers. I'll actually quickly show you that. So let's spin up a third container, but this time I would not specify a container name. So you can see that I already have a third container here up and running with some random name provided by the Docker daemon. Let's quickly grab that name. And if I go back to my container and let's run curl again, followed by the name of the third container, this time I would get an error that the host name cannot be resolved. So even if I disconnect from my container and let's quickly connect the new container to my Docker network by running docker network connect followed by the name of my network and then the name of the new container, in this case just the random name that the Docker daemon provided us with. So now we have our third container connected to our network, and you would expect that this would work. But if we run curl followed by the name of the container, you can see that we are again getting the cannot resolve host error. That's because you need to explicitly specify a name of your container in order this to work. So this is pretty much it. This is how you can create a Docker network and connect your containers to your network so that you can use your Docker container names instead of the Docker IP addresses. So that if your Docker host gets rebooted, you don't have to change your connection strings, but they will just keep working. I hope that this helps.